Welcome back.
Welcome back, family, to Hear Us Out. I'm Renee.
I am Kyrie.
As always, thank you so much for being here, especially our longtime subscribers who've been with us since the very beginning. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And to all of you all who are finding us for the first time, make sure to hit the subscription button so that you can continue to get notifications to hear us out.
Yes, thank you very much. And on this episode, we'll be continuing
Yes.
our reading and analysis of Thus Spoke Zarathustra, the
Right.
book for no one, by Friedrich Nietzsche.
Mm-hmm.
In the last episode, we read the prologue, but in this episode, we're getting into the book proper,
Right.
because this is part one.
Mm-hmm.
Right, there are 4 parts in total in this particular story, and so as a brief review of the prologue. We find Zarathustra on top of a mountain where he has sequestered himself for 10 years. And on top of that mountain, he found his enlightenment.
Right.
He found the answers to life's great problems. And now he's coming down off this mountain and he feels compelled to share his information. He is warned not to, but he still does. And so he goes into town and he tells the people of his new creation, the idea of the overman and the last man, and breaking from our stagnation, pushing forward and becoming something new and all that good stuff. But the town is very unreceptive to him.
Yes, indeed. Right. Right.
They're very unreceptive to his ideas and unreceptive to the world he's trying to reach. So Zarathustra leaves the city with a corpse on his back. If you want to know how he got a corpse,
you have to read that. Or go back to
the episode. But has a corpse on his back that he carries with him out of the city, out of the town, and he carries it through the night for days to try to find a good place to bury the body. And he's hounded by coyotes and vultures and all these other predators of the night. And he sleeps with the corpse, like on the side of a hill, right in a grassy clearing. And this how I picture it in my head. And he comes to in the morning, and he's been struck with this epiphany, and this epiphany that tells him that he can't try to reach out to normal everyday people. He needs to try to find people like him. He needs to find other creators, other rejoicers. He needs to create people. He needs to find people who are willing to challenge the system, who are willing to forge their own path and become, and to become this new overman. He needs creators. He needs other people like him. He can't try to reach those people who are far too certain and far too comfortable in their knowledge. He needs to find other people who are questing and who are curious and who want to find something more. And so he buries the corpse, and he takes off on this new path. And here, in book 1, is where we see the first few lessons of Zarathustra's new path.
And in discovering this new path, we find that this metamorphosis that the man himself, or in this case, person, period, goes through. And they have within them these 3 spirits, I guess you can say.
Yeah.
Right?
Through your travails with truth, with this new knowledge, with this new world you're trying to go into, this new bridge you're trying to cross, your spirit, right? That intangible part of yourself. Well, as much as your body does as well, goes through a metamorphosis. And the way that Neitzsche talks about these metamorphoses, like I said, they're metamorphoses of spirit, but he akins each particular phase to an animal, except for the last phase, which he likens to a child. So you go from being a camel to a lion to the child.
And one of the things that Neitzsche poses, the question is, to answer the question of what is the heaviest thing. It's the thing that I guess we must carry. Okay.
I know there's a quote.
Yeah, it's a quote.
Yeah.
And it says, the way to answer that is to address it by what the thing is not.
Mm-hmm. There are many heavy things for the spirit, for the strong weight-bearing spirit in which dwell respect and awe. Its strength longs for the heaviest. What is heavy? Thus asks the weight-bearing spirit. Thus it kneels down like the camel and wants to be well laden.
Right. And so you do not debase yourself.
So what is heavy? What is that heaviest thing? And like you said, you have to, the only way that you can really find that is to try to define everything that it is not. Yeah.
Right. And so you do not debase yourself in order to injure your pride. You do not debase yourself for pride. Okay? You do not let your folly shine out in order to mock your wisdom. Do not cheat your experience to play small in your wisdom. And I think a lot of times, some of us, when we are confronted with a problem, we feel sometimes as we want to lay into our wisdom more so than to lay into our experience. And here what he's saying is my taking is that you need both of them. You need your wisdom and you need your experience. It's not that one is over the other. It's just that you don't play small in anything. If you know something, then act like you know. If you're right, then act in that accordingly. And do not play small in that. And a lot of times, we like to look at it as being humble. And I use that term a lot, that, I'm humble in my knowledge. But it doesn't mean that I'm small or that I, would
fear utilizing.
Yes. And that's the thing that, I got from that particular component.
And I like the idea of like he says, the weight bearing spirit, because camels were the you could say the what would you call it, the 18-wheelers,
right?
The 18-wheelers of their day. They were the thing that crossed the Silk Road. They were the thing that allowed for trade in the Sahara Desert.
Right.
So they were the beast of burden.
That's right.
In those
they are the ones that are laden. And that's what the camel, I guess, signifies or symbolizes.
And the metamorphosis here, the thing that I see when I look at the camel, right, this particular phase,
right,
is that because he continues to go on, right, when he says, "What is the heaviest thing, you heroes? So ask the weight-bearing spirit, that I may take it upon me and rejoice in my strength. Is it not this? To debase yourself in order to injure your pride, to let your folly shine out in order to mock your wisdom? Or is it this? To desert our cause when it is celebrating its victory, to climb high mountains in order to tempt the tempter? Or is it this? To feed upon the acorns and grass of knowledge, and for the sake of truth, to suffer hunger of the soul?" Right? And he keeps going on that list, right? But the way that I kind of interpreted that was that the camel phase,
right,
is the phase of someone coming into a new knowledge, coming into a new truth, right? They don't necessarily see it for what it is, and they aren't necessarily putting it into practice.
Right.
What they're doing is that they are testing that new truth. They are testing themselves,
right,
in a sense. They don't immediately take that truth and oppose what the world is. Because he talks about the desert, right? He said you come into contact with this new truth, right? This new way of looking at things, and the world that you were in kind of seeps away, like a mirage in the desert. And you realize that no, you are in a desert, and the sun is beating and the sand is endless. But before you instantly go to try to conquer said world, to overcome it, you first think that maybe there's something wrong with you.
That's right. The truth becomes like a burden and a latency.
Yeah, maybe there's something wrong with me and how I'm seeing it. So the first things that you end up doing is that you challenge yourself. You're testing yourself, and you're testing your truth. Like you said, trying to take the heaviest burden to see what you can carry, to see what water your truth actually has. and see how it is best able to serve you. So you challenge it. You challenge yourself. And the way Neitzsche kind of thinks of this challenge is, once again, like we talked about from the prologue, is this sense of denial, right? Denying your knowledge, right? Denying what you think you know.
Right.
Denying your pride for your wisdom. Denying, like he says, to climb high mountains in order to tempt the tempter. All of these things, challenging yourself before you ever actually challenge your world. Right? And that's how you end up transitioning into the lion phase. Well, like he says, but in the loneliest desert, the second metamorphosis occurs. The spirit here becomes a lion. It wants to capture freedom and be lord in its own desert.
Yeah, that's literally what I wrote. That the lion wants its way in a place of its own making, making it its way. The lion is able to rule, to be the lord in what it is that the lion itself is able to create from its new knowledge.
Yeah.
And when it was the camel, you were testing, and in testing it, sometimes it burden you with the information.
It was a burden, but you. How can I say it was? Say that you've been given like this giant jug, right?
Right.
And you want to see what can it hold.
Right.
So you fill it with water, and you fill it with wine, and you fill it with sap from trees and all these things, but there's still more space in that jar. And you keep trying to fill it up and fill it up and fill it up, seeing how much this new tool that you have can actually hold. And you come to find out that it can hold whatever you put in there.
That's right. Yeah.
So when you have that knowledge, right? When you've tested it and tested yourself, right? That's when the first, metamorphosis happens. That's when the camel becomes a lion, because now you want to utilize what it is that you can carry.
That's right.
You want to utilize this new knowledge. Like you said, you want to claim victory.
Yeah.
You want to create your own sense of freedom. You want to own your own desert.
Right.
You don't want to exist in that space anymore. And to do that means to challenge the status quo in some way. And in doing that, the lion becomes kind of the personification of that conquering spirit, of that will to victory, the will to push forward.
Right. But the lion is like I mentioned when I wrote that, the lion has a sense of freedom in his knowledge, but even in his making and even in his knowledge, I use the word limited. But I think you had what was the term?
Specialized.
Yes, that it was specialized, and in specializing, that means that it can become a tool. It can also become a weapon, and more so, we tend to lean and use it as a weapon.
Because we've talked about that many times before. Because that's kind of what Neitzsche is talking about here: the weaponization of your knowledge to claim and conquer something for yourself, to create your own sense of freedom, right? And we've talked about that before, about how you don't want to weaponize, not that you want to utilize it, not weaponize it, right? But here we have Neitzsche talking about
pretty much the same thing.
Weaponize it now.
That's right.
It's weaponize it now.
Right.
So the thing that I say in regards to that is, Neitzsche has this idea of what sacrifice is meant to be and what creation is meant to be, especially when you're creating in opposition to something. And that's really where the lion comes in. The lion is an opposing spirit. Right? You utilize your knowledge. Right? And you utilize it by weaponizing it so you can create the new food. But even in this, like we said, it's specialized because the lion is not the final phase. Right. Because the lion cannot be the final phase.
Yes, because the lion, when the lion is freedom, when the lion is freedom gathering, when the lion is conquering, the thing that is hard for the lion to accept, well, not that it's hard to accept, And I think he mentions it, the sacred no, like
Yeah,
the lion
like
is able to.
the lion is like it is an opposing spirit. It
Right.
is meant to oppose. Right. He literally says here, right? It seeks here its ultimate Lord. It will be an enemy to him and to its ultimate God. It will struggle for victory with the great dragon. What is the great dragon, which the spirit no longer wants to call Lord and God? The great dragon is called Thou shalt, but the spirit of the lion says, I will. Right? And he also says, like, one of maybe my favorite sentences I've read so far. Right? To create new values. Even the lion is incapable of that. But to create itself freedom for new creation, that the might of the lion can do. To create freedom for itself and a sacred no, even to duty, the lion is needed for that, my brothers.
Yeah.
That's what he says. The lion is incapable of actually creating a new world. Right? But it can give you the freedom to create.
Right.
That's what it does. Like he calls it the sacred no. Right? Being able to, but now since you've denied your spirit, you've denied, the mirage of truth. You know what you can hold.
Right.
Now you are denying the world. The world that places its burdens onto you instead of you taking up your own. That tells you that you have to be and do a certain thing to exist. You now have the power. The lion gives you the power of the sacred no to deny the world, to deny the current system of values, and to create your own sense of freedom.
Right. So the lion is able to conquer and to give you that freedom to create and to do and to be something else. But the lion itself cannot necessarily function
for the lion to exist in whatever comes next.
Right.
It no longer can be a lion.
Right. It has to be.
Right. It has that's the final metamorphosis.
Yes, right.
But that's like what we've talked about many a times before. That if especially when it comes down to us, like if you make the whole Afrocentricity thing about opposing white people and opposing the Eurocentric worldview, if you define it that way, then your axis cannot exist
without that's right.
The Eurocentric worldview, without that your opposition.
Right.
It was created specifically for that. So when that goes away, if it does ever go away, right? When you defeat your enemy, when you do all that stuff, what's
the standing right?
What can you do?
Right.
Well, if you for you to maintain your Afrocentricity the way that you've maintained it before, there's always going to have to be another enemy.
That's right.
Another opposition.
Right.
And at that point, you are creating like I said, you're creating the madness you thought you were healing.
Right.
Right. For the lion to move on to the lion is able to achieve the room and the space that it needs through denial of this world to create what it wants to create. Right? But it cannot exist in that creation because the lion is meant to oppose what the world is. For it to exist in that new world, the lion must undergo a final metamorphosis into the child.
Right. And the thing is that while the lion has the sacred no, the child, I always say the person, has the sacred yes.
The child represents a person. The child. Let me just read it from here right now. Right. Once it loved this thou shalt as its holiest thing, now it has to find illusion and caprice even in the holiest, that it may steal freedom from its love. The lion is needed for this theft. But tell me, my brothers, what can the child do that even the lion cannot? Why must the preying lion still become a child? The child is innocence and forgetfulness, a new beginning, a sport, a self-propelling will, a first motion, a sacred yes.
Yeah, the child can say yes. Yes is powerful because it is a choice.
Yes, a sacred yes.
Yes, it's a choice, right.
For the sport of creation, the spirit now wills its own will. The spirit sundered from the world now wins its own world.
Right.
Right. So that is what the child is able to do. The child is able to create in the space that has been won for it by the lion.
Right.
Right. That's the thing. Like, you weaponize your history, you weaponize your culture, you weaponize your spirit, knowing that it's going to have to be unweaponized.
Right.
It's going to have to become something else. Right. But the whole metric of it, you kind of get caught up in that self-fulfilling prophecy. So I say, why weaponize even to begin with?
Right.
Because the child is like you said, the child is a sacred yes. It is understand, all of this is about affirming life, having the will to affirm life after the death of God. After the death of the old moral system, do you have the will, the human will, to be able to create and affirm a new one, not composed of some otherworldly paternal father figure,
right?
Not some tangible thing that is meant to look down upon you and and command you to be a certain thing. Thou shalt is dead, right?
It is I will.
It is I will. Do you have enough will in you to levy that to create something beautiful, to create your own affirmation of life? The child is able to do that because the child no longer exists within this context. It is no longer holding it, is not burdened by it, and is not opposing it. It is entirely removed. And in that space, it can finally create, exist in its creation. It can say yes.
And in this new space, in order to even get to that, you needed to go through these changes. It's not getting rid of the camel, or getting rid of the lion, because all of those steps were necessary in the creation of this sacred yes, of having that choice. And understanding that also is that the yes, when it is enough. And what I mean is that it's not that everyone has to say, it's not that everyone has to say yes, but you need enough of those choices in order to get things done.
You need to understand what it is that you're challenging, what it is that you're changing. Right? Like we said many a times before, like you said, you're not opposing them. Well, that's not completely.
Yeah, that's not
what
right.
It is. You're creating. You're progressing. Doing that is an act in and of itself, which entails opposition. Which entails, creation. Right? Moving forward, progressing. The child entails the lion and the camel.
That's right.
But the point is the child. The point is to get to there. Right? So yeah.
Yeah, and we've often, talked about this many times, from the first episode, even on Afrocentricity, how we were trying to understand that we're not in constant response to the actions and behaviors and conducts of the other peoples. That sometimes I'm not saying that
Neitzsche,
you aren't to confront
Neitzsche
those problems.
Talks about the death of God. What we have been talking about is the death of the white man.
Yes.
How can Afrocentricity survive? How can this new system of values survive without the white man? Without the white devil, without the opposition? Do you still have the will to life? The will to be black and to have an understanding of your culture and who you are outside of that paradigm? Because the white man is dead. The saint didn't know.
That's right.
The sage, or
that's right. Whoever you call
your warrior poets, your warrior scholars, they don't know. The white man is dead.
Can you be what it is that you say that you want to be and become? Not in spite of or because of a just to be. If you say that
as an affirmation
that's
of self,
right? That you are an African, right? That's you are an African. You are an African not because the white man said that you are. Right?
Not because it has fallen
upon you. Like it was some grand mistake or or whatever. Is that who you are? Period. And what does that affirmation, what does that mean for you? If it's always, I'm an African because, the white man, this is the white man, that, and like we said, when he or she, when they are no longer there, are you still...
Yeah, once you beat your enemy, once you get the world exactly the way that you want it to be, what are you going to do about you?
Right.
What are you going to do in that new world?
Right.
What's it going to be? Nobody wins forever. That's not how it works.
Yeah, we should
ask them.
Yeah, that's right. Right.
Nobody wins forever.
Right. And the thing is that just because, look, we've talked about this, I don't know how many times, about like time. Like, we have the weight of time. It just feels like it's always going to be this because it's been this way for 1,000 years, 2,000, however, whatever number you want to put on it. But the thing is that that's not necessarily how it goes. Just because a thing has been doesn't mean that it's going to continue or continue to be. So who are you in all of that?
Because that's how you end it.
Yes.
That's how you get out the desert.
That's right.
That's how you get to that place where you can create your own and be in your own. You become the child.
Right.
But the thing is, you want to get to the next place as the lion.
Yeah.
The lion can't get there.
Right. The lion can and will take you as far as the lion can take you.
The lion will get you to opposing.
Right. That's it.
The lion will not get you to create.
That's right. And I think I had actually wrote that down.
The child creates.
The child creates.
The lion gives the child the freedom
to create. Right.
Right?
Literally wrote that down. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. So that was, I guess, part one of part one. Now we move on to part two of part one.
Right.
This is my favorite thing. This whole thing right here. Do you want to read it?
You read it.
Yeah. Okay.
Because my glasses on. We just write.
I just want to read. So I'm just
going
to
just read
this straight through.
Yeah.
Read this straight through. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Of the despisers of the body. I wish to speak to the despisers of the body. Let them not learn differently nor teach differently, but only bid farewell to their own bodies, and so become dumb. I am body and soul, so speaks the child. And why should one not speak like children? But the awakened, the enlightened man says, I am body entirely, and nothing beside. And soul is only a word for something in the body. The body is a great intelligence, a multiplicity with one sense, a war and a peace, a herd and a herdsman. Your little intelligence, my brother, which you call spirit, is also an instrument of your body, a little instrument and toy of your great intelligence. You say I, and you are proud of this word, but greater than this, although you will not believe in it, is your body and its great intelligence, which does not say I, but performs I. What the sense feels, what the spirit perceives, is never an end in itself, but sense and spirit will like to persuade you that they are the end of all things. They are as vain as that. Sense and spirit are instruments and toys. Behind them still lies the self. The self seeks with the eyes of the sense. It listens too with the ears of the spirit. The self is always listening and seeking. It compares, subdues, conquers, destroys. It rules, and is also the ego's ruler. Behind your thoughts and feelings, my brother, stands a mighty commander, an unknown sage. He is called self. He lives in your body. He is your body. There is more reason in your body than in your best wisdom. And who knows for what purpose your body requires precisely your best wisdom? Yourself laughs at your ego and its proud leapings. What are these leapings and flights of thought to me? It says to itself, a byway to my goal. I am the ego's leading string, and I prompt its conception. The self says to the ego, feel pain. Thereupon it suffers and gives thought how to end its suffering. And it is meant to think for just that purpose. The self says to the ego, feel joy. Thereupon it rejoices and gives thought how it may often rejoice. And it is meant to think for just that purpose. I want to say a word to the despisers of the body. It is their esteem that produces this disesteem. What is it that created esteem and disesteem and value and will? The creative self created for itself esteem and disesteem. It created for itself joy and sorrow. The creative body created spirit for itself, as a hand of its will, even in your folly and contempt. You despisers of the body, you serve yourself. I tell you, yourself itself wants to die and turn away from life. Yourself can no longer perform the act which it most desires to perform, to create beyond itself. And that is what it most wishes to do. That is its whole adieu. But now it has grown too late for that. So yourself wants to perish, you despisers of the body. Yourself wants to perish, and that is why you have become despisers of the body. And therefore, for no longer are you able to create beyond yourselves. Missed that sentence right there. And therefore, you are now angry with life and with the earth, and unconscious envy lies in the sidelong glance of your contempt. I do not go your way, you despisers of the body. You are not bridges to the overman. Thus spoke Zarathustra.
Where you want to start? Where you want to start?
That right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. That's
that's it.
I don't.
This is what we've been talking about.
How many times I read this and I wrote this down. When I read it, and I think this best sums up my thoughts and feelings about this. Right. Beyond actions and words lies the self, the true self. The self wants to create something else. The self wants to progress. So it created the body and the spirit as a means to an end, to create progress. But the despisers of the body have mistaken the body for the self, and in turn have lost sight of their purpose. They can't progress. They can only make mirrors, and they hate themselves because they hate what they see. So they despise the body. Deny the body despite the self. That is the root of stagnation. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much it.
Right, because when he says the body is not I, the body performs.
The body's meant to perform I, which you really okay.
Right.
This is such like this is we've talked about this many times before about how what you really are,
right?
Like that ineffable, unquenchable thing inside of you. That thing that you don't really have a word for, but you just have a sense of that thing. And that's the only word I have for it. That is what you are. That is what he's describing as the self. Right? The self-created body and spirit. Created your hands and your eyes and all of that as a function.
Of that thing.
Because that thing longs to create something else. It longs to progress, to move forward, to evolve. Right? But human beings did that thing that we always do. We made the mistake of believing that we are what we see.
That's right.
We can no longer see beyond our body because our gods were created to rule our bodies, right? To rule the body and the spirit in complete, disregard for the self, which the body can't even perceive anymore.
Right.
Doesn't even have a word for it anymore. It has completely lost itself. Right? And then when it creates, it can only, like I said before, it can only ever create a mirror.
Right.
It can only create a reflection of its malformed self, of what it has done to itself. And it hates it. It hates its world. It hates itself. And so it despises itself. It despises of the body. It denies the body. Not from a sense of creation, not to create that bridge. Like I said, that's not a bridge to the overman.
Right.
That's not what you're doing. You're denying your body to spite yourself. You've become a walking anachronism.
Right.
You've regressed. All you are is a stone in the river, diverting water. Just standing there, eroding, pushing water aside, just being something in the way.
The way, that's right. In the way, that's right.
Because you refuse to progress. You can't see yourself anymore. Right? You can't see yourself. But it's all that you can see. It's all that you can create. And you hate it. And you think there's something wrong here. You think, what's going on? There is something wrong.
Right.
It's because the thing that you are building from, The impetus that you are responding to, that's the wrong input. You're not trying to fix this world. You can't fix this. That's the point. You have to progress beyond it. You have to create something else. That's your impetus. That's what your body and spirit is here for. How many times have we said that?
I mean, look, we have well over 80 episodes. Most of these episodes have been an hour and a half. Some of you clocked in over 2 hours. Okay, and we have talked about this extensively here, off air, and just in general.
In general, in life.
Okay, is that there is nothing to fix here. This has to go. This has to completely go. For the thing that you want, it cannot come from this. It can't come from this. Because if it comes from this, you're going to keep getting what you're getting. This is why
it's a mirror.
It's a mirror. And we know that people, they go off what they see. Or what they even think that they see. Okay? How many... If you are black in this country, then you know what I'm saying here. You know what I'm saying when people have this preconceived notions based off the things that they think that they see. They haven't even seen it. But then when they do see it, we already know how folks respond.
It's because you were looking for it.
That's right.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes. So we know this. We're catching up to our knowledge here. We know this. We know what happens when you're just basing things off of what you see. And I mentioned, earlier about when you are the part of the oppressed group, right? The boot is right in your face, right? The boot is in your face, so you see the sole of the shoe, and that person that's stomping on you.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that matters, is trying to get from underneath this, But even then, we know we know that there's something else behind that. There's a whole system, a whole system in play that allows this person to put this boot upside your head. It's the same thing with the drug dealer that I mentioned, about the drug dealer on the corner. There's a whole
system in place that puts you on that ground.
That's right.
That puts him there. That made the ground under your feet.
Yeah.
There's a whole thing.
Right. It's the same thing.
A whole apparatus that constantly bleeds back into itself.
Right. Over and over again. This is why when you talk about the drug dealer that's on the corner, we know all that drug dealer on the corner. Where did he get the drugs from? Is he controlling the planes that's bringing the stuff in and doing this and doing it? We all know that it goes further than just the guy that's on the corner harassing everybody. We can see it there. But I always say we tend to have our own issues in applying that to other situations. And even vice versa.
Having it applied to us.
Yes.
But yeah. that whole, like I said, that right. Completely of despisers of that whole thing has just laid out what the problem is. That's the problem. You forgot that I just think there's this part in Samurai Jack, which is my favorite show. I've been watching it ever since I was a kid. I was banned from watching it. But I still watch it.
You still watch it, right?
Right. I love this show.
I was so young. Anyway, keep going.
And Samurai Jack is about samurai who gets sent forward 50,000 years in time, and he has to stop the big evil guy that took over the future, that he failed to kill back in the day, that sent him in the future. Right? And so there's this one scene where he's like in a cave, and he's trapped in this cave, and he's seeing his ancestors, his forefathers and stuff like that, who have talked about, you've been in the future for so long, you still haven't done it, and they just screamed at him, like, you've forgotten your purpose. You've forsaken us. That's what I think when I read, like, you forgot.
Yeah.
You've forgotten your purpose. You have forsaken us. You've forsaken yourself. But Jack didn't.
Right.
We have, though.
Right.
We forgot.
Yeah, but
we forgot how this was meant to work.
Right.
We forgot what got us this far.
And here we are.
Now here we are questioning the inherent goodness of humanity.
Right.
When you've forgotten, you right. Of course you can question that, right? You despise your world, but you don't know what to do with it,
right? Because
you've forgotten where it came from. You've forgotten what it is. You've forgotten your purpose,
right?
You've forgotten what it means to be alive. You are the living embodiment of stagnation.
Yep.
You are a stale body of water that is just laden with pests and bugs and disease because you are not moving anymore.
Yep. You're stale.
You're just right
built
there.
up with all, just all kind of stuff.
And you hate yourself.
Yep.
Like, what is this? What is this? Because everywhere you look, you see that stale water. Well, guess what, son?
Right.
Look inward.
Right.
Look inward. See what you've forgotten. See what you've forgotten.
Right. And this is not about blame, because I know everyone, that's not what this is. It's not when something something goes awry, they always tell you, they always want to blame you, like blame the victim for his own murder or something like that. That's not what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Okay. We're talking about what it is that you say that you want to come into.
We're talking about the world we are living in.
Right. What you want to come into.
This
world that
we are living in
right.
is a mirror. It is a reflection of who we are.
That's right.
Our world is poor because our soul is desolate. If you want to change this world, then you can change the world as much as you want. You can challenge it. You can fight it. Right. You can oppose it. But know that it will not move. It will not become anything other than what it is. Because you haven't moved.
That's right. You haven't done any work, right?
What you need to be.
That's right.
To create that next thing. So all you will ever get is stagnant waters. And it will always attract the pests. All the same problems. All the same parties.
Yes. Same issues, same problems.
And feeding.
Right.
Off of your this closed cycle.
Right. So your form, there you go with your form over function. This is why, well, we had empires too, right?
Yeah.
They talk about the glory of the Norse and the Romans or whatever. Oh, well, we had empires too.
We had Mali and
Axel. We had all those great things, and we were rich, and we were that. Why do they call our stuff tribal wars? They don't call the issues between the Greeks and the Romans. They don't call that tribal or whatever. I'm like, you're missing.
You're missing the point here.
Man, you so far off. I don't even know where you are. Because that.
Why don't they call our wars like they call their wars?
Yeah, that's what we are now.
The problem. That's right.
Come on.
So yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we can do this all day.
We can talk about that all day. And we have, like you said, 80 episodes, that always ends up being the point.
Right.
Especially in those Dune episodes. But so yeah. That was that. Now we have part 3.
Right.
Part 1.
Right.
Of the 1001 Goals. Now, you want to relive something from that? Because this part, I'm sure you wrote something down for that. Right?
Yeah, I just put that for Zarathustra, no power is greater than good and evil. No people could live without evaluating. But if it wishes to maintain itself, it must not evaluate as its neighbor evaluates. And so what I glean from that.
Remember, just read what you're pulling from. What particular thing are you pulling from?
In my own page, because I didn't mark the page. I didn't mark where I pulled.
It should be right in the middle, I think.
Yes,
here. Here, go right here.
Oh yeah, it is Mark. It is Mark. I'm sorry.
Right. Truly, men have given themselves all their good and evil.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, they did not take it. They did not find it. It did not descend to them as a voice from heaven. Man first implanted value into things to maintain himself.
Mm-hmm.
He created the meaning of things, a human meaning. Therefore, he calls himself man. That is the evaluator. Evaluation is creation.
Mm-hmm.
Hear it, you creative men. Evaluating is itself the value and jewel of a valued thing.
Mm-hmm. Man, and I literally have it. I got it written down. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But in any case, the thing is that if you, it's sort of like when we talk about the metric, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're using, this same metric, then you're going to continue to get the same results, the same things. So in your creating of your new world, in the acknowledgement of your true self, that means that you cannot measure that using these metrics that are already have been in play.
Yeah.
If you want to see how, I'm gonna say, and I'm putting this in quotation, how successful you are in your knowledge, in your learning, even through through the lens of Afrocentricity, right? See how far removed you are from the oppressors' metric and how it is that they define success. I even think about like our homeschooling, right? And what it is. Well, how do you know? Do they take me? Do you have tests for your child for the child? Will the child be able to go to college? Do this ACT? All of these old type of things to measure whether or not what I'm doing in my homeschool is quote unquote successful. And I felt like I felt the opposite, that to remove those things, and to do things the way that the way we want to do it. And that's what so many attributes, so many goals in life. If you want to know how, if you're doing the same things, what does it take to become successful in the music industry? And everyone complains about those steps, but everybody wants to take those exact same steps, and you want to measure that as success. Well, if you want to, stop having clients get robbed or whatever the case may be, then you have to do something else altogether, completely outside of this.
Yeah, that Neitzsche is touching on here, right? When he talks about good and evil,
right? Yeah.
He is explicitly stating something that we have talked about so many times before, that we created this world. It wasn't we created God to take that responsibility from us. We created God. We did this.
Right.
So if you want things to change, don't pray to God.
Right.
We created this. We created the metric for good and evil. And like he says, so many people have so many systems of values. All of these people have their own things. But the thing is that they have it to such an extent, and they have become so, how can I say this? They've become so married to that particular sense that they have forgotten. They've forgotten to recognize those people in front of them, what's around them. I wrote this down when I read it. I said, good and evil are human constructions, and being human, they are many and varied. Humans, forgetting their creation, forgot how to recognize the good and evil in their neighbors, essentially becoming unable to put value in the other.
Right.
Because good and evil is a value judgment. And like he said,
the
ultimate value.
Right.
The ultimate value is being able to place value. That is the ultimate value.
Yeah,
and that's what humans. That's what the overman is able to do. That's what the overman realizes, that the thing that is valuable is not your value.
Right.
The thing that is valuable is your ability to create value. That's what's valuable.
Right. This is why it's, This is why in certain cultures or whatever, like certain things we may look at as quote unquote bad. Mm-hmm. In other cultures or whatever,
he touches on that as well. He talks about that as well.
That it may not be viewed the same way.
Different, views. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, like, you become so married to your value instead of the form. Right. Instead of the, you get so married to the form, you forget the function. Mm-hmm. Right. And you can't recognize, you can't recognize the good and evil in your neighbor. Mm-hmm. You can't recognize the inherent value of the other because your values have become so unchangeable, so stagnant, that you've forgotten how to see. Mm-hmm. Yeah. You've forgotten how to be able to place value in life. Mm-hmm. Because now you think your values are self-sustaining. Right. That they're self-creating.
But they're not. They become impositions.
You move beyond it. People exist outside of that.
That's right.
And your values have to be able to move with that. That's why being able to create values is much more important. Mm-hmm. Because that is what allows you to grow. Right. Not the values in and of themselves.
That's right.
Right? And he even touches on something, right? It's something that we've talked about many a times before. Mm-hmm. Right? He says, truly the cunning, loveless ego that seeks its advantage in the advantage of many, that is not the origin of the herd, but the herd's destruction. Mm-hmm. That's kind of a restatement of an axiom we have said many a times on this show, right? That the sacrifice of my neighbor for myself is not self-preservation, it's ego.
That's right.
The sacrifice of myself for my neighbor is not martyrdom, it is ego. Right? When your values when a person's value becomes the people's values, right? When that metric goes that way, then the death of the person, the sacrifice of the person, becomes the death of the people in and of themselves.
Oh Lord! Like how many times have we talked about that? Right.
So you're sacrificing yourself is not saving the herd. Right. It's not saving your values. It's destroying them.
Pick a black leader. I'm like that's because pick a black leader. Pick them. It doesn't matter when that person is either murdered or whatever the case may be. What happens? All of it dies with him or her.
And I love his final sentence. Yet tell me, my brothers, if a goal for humanity is still lacking, is there not still lacking humanity itself? That's the thing. The goal is that's the form. What you're trying to get to is the form. The thing is creating the type of person to get to that point. It's not your values; it's how you create your values.
Right.
That's what's important. Being able to do that and not having them dictated to you, imposed upon.
Right.
Being able to move and change with your people. Right. Being able to marry your values with your people's values. Being able to move in that space and create from that space. That is the good and the evil. That is the value in and of itself. Right? Yeah. So now we have come to part 3 of part 1.
Right?
The final part. And part 3 is in and of itself broken down into 3 little vignettes.
Yeah.
Right? 3 little vignettes. But the thing that Neitzsche is saying, because the name of this particular part is called Of the Bestowing of Values. Not values. Of the bestowing virtue. The power to bestow virtue. Yeah. Which is he says many times before.
Right, because the greatest virtue is to be able to bestow virtue.
That's literally he said. Yeah. The highest virtue is uncommon and useless. It is shining and mellow and luster. The highest virtue is a bestowing virtue. Right? Because he says a little earlier on, tell me, how did gold come to have the highest value? Because it is uncommon and useless and shining and mellow and luster. It always bestows itself. Only as an image of the highest value did gold come to have the highest value. Gold like gleams, the glance of the giver. Gold luster makes peace between moon and sun. Right? And so the thing, like you said, that gives gold its value is the gold itself.
Right.
Right? Because it is gold.
Right.
That is what makes it valuable. It's being in and of itself.
Right.
And he likens that to virtue. Right? Virtue. Real life, true virtue. Like I wrote the sentence here. True virtue is worthless in this world, but it allows one to reach the new world where it is worth its weight in gold. And this is kind of the same thing that we talked about with Plato and the Republic.
Right.
Right? When he talks about his unalloyed gold and the spirits of the men. That allows them, that makes them most fit to lead.
Right.
Right? And we said then that, the only time that gold is going to be valuable is when it is worthless.
That's right. When that gold component, right,
is found in abundance. Absolutely everywhere. Rendering it, worthless. But, it becomes worthless on an economic scale. But it still is able to maintain its value.
Right.
Because it is gold. It is gold. It's valuable in and of itself. Right? So that's the thing. Right? Having real life virtue, right? As Neitzsche calls it, makes one worthless in this world.
Yeah.
Same thing that Plato talked about philosophers.
Right.
You become worthless. Because this world, like I said before, is a malformed reflection of our desolate souls. So someone looking for actual value and actual virtue, someone trying to attain to those goals is attaining to a world that does not yet exist. It's not the world we're living in.
Right.
So what you have right now is not valuable. Not here.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's not worthy.
Yeah.
Not here.
Right.
It's valuable in and of itself.
Right. But it's worthless here in your new construction.
But it allows you to reach for that new place where, like I said, where it will have the worth it needs to have.
Right.
Right? And then that's part one.
Right.
Part one. Part one of part three. Part one. This is part two here. Right? Where he pretty much tells his people, his followers, right? Which he's been able to, which he just has.
They've been coming.
They don't get into how he got his followers.
Yeah, but they just
they're
coming along. They're moving along with
him being in a town called the Pied Cow.
Yeah.
So perhaps he's been giving his sermons, and some people
been attracting some folk, right?
Yeah, have come to him, and he pretty much in part two, he says, "I have to go now.
Right.
I'm going to leave." But challenge my beliefs.
Right.
Challenge all the things that I've said to you. Don't
just take
it for what it is. You're not following me. I'm looking for creators.
Yeah, I'm looking for creators. I'm about to say that.
Right.
Yeah.
And I love this little thing that he says here. Right. Let me see if I can find it.
What page are you on?
I'm on 269.
All right. 269, paragraph 5. Just count down 5. Is that what you have?
Count down 5.
Yeah, the 5 paragraph. The 5th. That's what you marked?
No, I haven't marked that.
Okay, that's what. Oh, okay. That's what I marked.
Ooh, where is this thing?
See, let me see.
Because I know what he talks about here. Because I wrote this sentence down. That virtue may take you away from this world, but don't let your virtue erode your love of yourself and the earth. Virtue is needed, so you must be willing to give it.
Right. The body purifies itself through knowledge. Experimenting with knowledge it elevates itself. To the discerning man, all instincts are holy. The soul is the elevated man grows joyful.
The thing that I remember, the thing that I'm talking that I wanted to read, that was in part 3.
Okay.
That was in part 3.
Okay.
The statues line, that's in part 3.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Because what he talks about in part 2 is talking about the isolation. That you find yourself in when you are existing, in a philosophical space that is incompatible with the world that you are currently living in.
May your spirit and your virtue serve the meaning of the earth, my brothers. And may the value of all things be fixed anew by you to that end, you should be fighters. To that end, you should be creators.
Just kind of the same thing that Plato talked about in the Republic, about, philosophers do not want to rule, but they are the best people to rule, so they must be compelled by law to be rulers. Right? That's not what Nietzsche's saying. Right? He's saying that the world needs you.
Right.
It needs people like you, willing to create, willing to challenge it, willing to push it forward. But what you are doing is isolating. Don't become like the saint.
Yeah, I'm about to say that.
Don't allow for your new truth to take you away from humanity.
Right.
It's supposed to pull you in deeper. And even though, like I say, it is isolating it to the extent you are what the world needs.
That's right.
He's trying to compel action from his followers, not through not through the law,
right,
but through force of will. Being able to meet people and help people and exist in that space because that's the space you want to exist in, because that's the thing that you want to do. Right? And now we come to part three
right.
of part one.
Right.
Our final part. Right? So this is where Zarathustra leaves his people.
Right.
And he tells them to challenge his beliefs. But he says this line here, which is another one of my favorite lines. Right? You respect me. But how if one day your respect... Excuse me. I'm going to start over.
Right.
You respect me. But how if one day your respect should tumble? Take care that a falling statue does not strike you dead.
Yeah.
Like that line right there. Listen, I wrote down this one final sentence here. Challenge your teachings. Question everything. But do it from a sense of curiosity and a hunger for knowledge, not from a place of apathy and cynicism.
Yeah.
Right? Don't get so caught up in trying to tear down the statue that you end up killing yourself. You have to know that all of this is for the point of creation.
Right.
It's to get to that. Yes, challenge your teachings. Challenge history. Challenge the world. But from a place of creativity.
Right.
Of trying to reach that, that other place. Don't just challenge the world because you want to tear it down.
Right.
Because then you're going to take
you're going to kill yourself. Right.
You're kill yourself on the way down.
Right.
You challenge your world. It needs to be changed.
Of course.
You need to be able to progress beyond it. And that progression entails challenge. Right? But challenge does not always entail progression.
Right.
Right? You can get caught up in fighting and never get anywhere.
Yeah. That's the difference between change and progress. We talk about that all the time.
Yeah. And so that's pretty much what he's talking about here. Is that yes, being able to place value, that is the ultimate value. Right? That is, and it is worthless. But don't let that make you despair. Yeah. Because the world still needs you. And in that need, don't get so caught up trying to destroy your world that you forget to create something else.
I know that sounds familiar to us. Because especially for those of us who have been, I'm going to say, studying Black history, who've really been involved in Afrocentricity. We know all of the great scholars. We've read their works. You know their names. The idea of studying their work, is to create something else. We don't have to waste our time trying to recreate anything, because you're already an original. So therefore your creations and whatever it is that you do need to be original as well. These problems that, like I said, you cannot fix these problems here. There is no fixing this. And I think that's pretty obvious to a lot of our...
Fixing this is not how you fix this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, in conclusion, that was our analysis of part one of Spoke Zarathustra. We read about the metamorphoses, about the despisers of the body, about the 1,001 goals, and about bestowing virtue. All these things are coming from a place of understanding where you're trying to go and how you're meant to get there. He talks about it roughly in the metamorphoses, right? And he truly breaks down the thing that's keeping us stuck here in despisers of the body. Where he just completely laid out what stagnation is and why we ain't going nowhere. Right? Then in Of 1,001 Goals, he talks about the multitudinous nature of our system of values, of our ideas of good and evil. Right? So what is good and evil about these things must reach beyond the values themselves and become married to the ability to create those values. Right? Body and spirit is a form and it is a function of the self. Good and evil is a function of the self as well. All of these things must be used to progress, to reach the overman. Right?
Not to weaponize your history, but to understand it.
You're not trying to defeat your world. You're trying to reach a new one. And that in and of itself entails the end of this. You know, and in bestowing virtue is where he talks about the inherent problems and the inherent value of virtue. That virtue in and of itself is worthless in a world that does not value it.
And understanding that in your creating of this new world, there is supposed to be uncertainty. Because we know what certainty is. We know what that is. It's just that when those uncertainties arise, when those problems arise, that we are much more able to move in a way.
When those problems arise, hopefully by that point you are the child.
Yes.
And you respond a bit
differently. That's right. That you'll be able to respond in a way
that retains the virtue of the overman. So yes, if you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments. Thank you for listening and thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you.